Hello and welcome to another lecture of Econ 2302, Principles of Microeconomics. This lecture will cover Chapter 5, which goes over elasticity, which is essentially just a measure of responsiveness. If you'll recall in Chapter 4, we talked about demand and specifically the law of demand, which states that an increase in price will result in a decrease in the quantity demanded, ceteris paribus. The law of demand is very useful, however, it doesn't give us the full picture. That is because not everybody's demand is going to be a linear curve in which we have the same slope dependent on all price levels. If you'll recall, the demand curve that we've looked at so far has been a demand curve that's a very straight line, and it's negative sloping. Well, in reality, that's not exactly what each of our own individual demand curves would look like if we were going to change prices throughout time. We would actually see a demand curve that would bend a little bit, and this is where the term elasticity comes into play. If you want to get a good picture of it, the reason why I have that rubber band up there is not just for a visualization for the term elasticity. It actually is a pretty good visualization of how the demand curve is elastic. So think of it this way. You've got your rubber band and it's stretched out. And as you change prices, what you're doing is you're just taking, let's just say your finger or whatever, and essentially pulling on that rubber band one way or the other, and depending on how much you pull that rubber band, you're going to see a big curve or just a minimal curve. And what we like to call that is how price sensitive you are. So essentially how responsive you are to changes in price. Now, before I go any further, let me quickly say this is very important to anybody who's a business major. Whether you're going into marketing, management, general business, economics, or finance, how price sensitive you are it's just vital to the operations of a business. And you might be saying, well, why would a business really care how price sensitive people are? Well, the goal of the business is to make profit, right? Maximize profit. And if the goal is to maximize profit, then we want to see if we lower price, how much more willing are you to buy products? For instance, if we lower the price of a hot dog, how many more hot dogs will you buy? The more price sensitive you are, the more likely we are going to lower the price. The less price sensitive you are, the more likely we are going to raise the price, right? Because you don't care one way or the other. So this leads into how do we calculate this responsiveness? I have added a whiteboard lecture specifically on the price elasticity of demand. You'll see that equation down at the bottom of your screen right now. I recommend you go in there and work a few of the problems from the book. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I have devoted a whole whiteboard lecture on calculating the price elasticity of demand, so I'm not going to get into that in this particular lecture. But what I do want you to see is that this formula actually gives us something, and that is the elasticity of demand, and how do we apply that into the realm of business. So price elasticity of demand is essentially a measurement of the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to changes in the price equal to the absolute value of the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. Essentially what that's saying is just that it is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price, and it's the absolute value of that. You can see that in the equation below. You are going to need to know how to calculate that for the exam. And the reason being is once we calculate this out, and you can see an example right there, we find out whether you are elastic or inelastic. So let's start off with elastic. The price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. So the percentage in quantity exceeds the percentage change in price. What that means is you are more likely to buy more goods when you have a lower price. So if price decreased by 10%, you're going to see an increase of more than 10% of the product. This means you're really price sensitive. That means it might be something like Tom's Tacos, and if they lower the price of tacos by 10%, you're willing to buy 20% more tacos. This is where it comes into play in marketing and finance. We can market, let's just say a sale like at JCPenney's or Bell's or something like that, specifically to single mothers. And we can have this ad campaign because we know that single mothers are more price sensitive than typical mothers who are married or something like that. I don't know for sure, but I'm just saying that if we find out that they actually are more price sensitive, then we're going to have an ad campaign directed solely at them so we can increase their quantity purchased and therefore increase total revenue and ultimately increase profit. All that being said, if you have an elastic demand, that means you're really price sensitive. The price goes down, the more you're going to buy. Meanwhile, if you have an inelastic demand, this means you're not as price sensitive. So if, given the example I said earlier, Tom's Tacos decreased their price of a taco by 10%, what we would see is that you would only buy 8% more tacos or 5% more tacos. Essentially, what we're getting at here is that you're not so price sensitive, and therefore you're going to buy no matter what, and we probably shouldn't mess with price. We're not going to lower price. We're already at that sweet point or a sweet spot. What's really good to know regarding this is if we have a good that is inelastic and for a particular group of people and we're selling it to them and it's inelastic, then we can focus mainly on lowering the cost of production. And we're going to cover that more later on in various chapters, but we no longer have to worry so much about price. We're going to set the price at marginal cost equals marginal benefit and maximize our profit, but we're not going to try to play with the price. We're not going to essentially offer discounts or coupons and things like that because we know people are going to buy it, and there's no need to try to give an incentive to promote people to buy the good. A few more terms you need to know regarding elasticity. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather if you haven't been able to tell by my voice. I'm getting it back. Unit elastic demand. This is the price elasticity of demand that is equal to 1. What this means is if we were to lower the price of a taco at Tom's Tacos by 10%, then we would see an increase in sales of exactly 10%. I don't know of any place that this has ever happened, but we do have this term to illustrate if it ever did happen. So if we lowered the price by a certain percentage, we would see quantity increase by that exact percentage. And so that curve looks exactly 1/1. It's very similar to the demand curve that we drew in chapter 4. Perfectly inelastic demand. This is when the price elasticity of demand is 0. This is essentially a monopoly, but we'll look at monopoly graphs later on, and they do differ a little bit, but for the most part, just think of it this way. No matter what, you're only going to buy a certain amount. So in this particular graph, you're always going to buy 20 of that particular item. Whether you set that price at $1 or you set the price at $1 million on this particular graph, as long as you have the income to pay for it, then you're going to always see them buy exactly 20. What I would like to classify this as is something that you particularly would only buy once. This is usually when we would see an inelastic demand, perfectly inelastic demand. For instance, I have in the last few years bought a refrigerator, and I also bought a stove. And these are two goods that I'm probably only going to buy one time and one time only. Now, I'm a little price sensitive, so it's not actually perfectly inelastic, but let's just say that I had $1,000 and that's the max I was willing to buy or spend. It wouldn't matter so much if the particular store, if I only had $1,000, lowered their price to $500, I wouldn't buy 2 refrigerators. I wouldn't buy 3 if they lowered it to $300 because I only need 1 refrigerator. Lowering it gives me more money to buy other things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to buy more of that particular good. Perfectly elastic demand. This is a little bit different. This is essentially where you're really price sensitive. Oh, let me go back one. What this would be is that the demand is infinite, and essentially what we're getting at is you really want this product, and you continually want this product, and as long as they lower price, you're just going to keep buying more and more and more and more and more of the product, and your demand essentially is never going to be fulfilled. So something that's perfectly elastic will always be set where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. There would never be an instant in which perfectly elastic demand left any room. Here's just a broad list of various goods that have different price elasticities of demand, and we can see where inelastic goods are versus elastic goods. And you can see kind of the different products. I will say this. I don't really agree with how the book labels all of these price elasticities of demand. This is just an average. Personally, I would say that a physician visit would probably be close to 0.1, because no matter what, I am going to, if I'm really sick and I finally go to the doctor, myself, I am not really price sensitive, especially considering I have insurance and I know my copay is only $25, so therefore it's going to be $25 no matter what. If I go to a really expensive doctor versus a cheap doctor, or cheaper doctor, I guess I should say, doesn't matter at all. So these are actually things that are on average of a lot of people. What you can see is that the more substitutes you have, the more price sensitive you are. What that means is you have more options. We're going to look at that a little bit more closely in a second. And so this is just a good graph or a table that shows you how demand is either relatively elastic versus inelastic depending on the amount of substitutes, the passage of time, the fraction of consumer budget, necessity. What it's getting at, those 4 factors, if there are a lot of options, then you are going to be very price sensitive because, hey, you've got lots of choices. You're going to want the cheapest. If there aren't very many substitutes or options, you're pretty inelastic. You're essentially dependent on what they're going to offer you. Passage of time. What this is getting at is how quickly do you need the good? If I need a heart transplant, then I have a very inelastic demand. I need it instantly. A short time passes. Demand is relatively inelastic. If I can wait, let's just say I have a dental appointment and I don't have a toothache or anything like that. It's just a checkup. And the earliest they can get me in is 2 months from now. That's okay. I'm all right with that. Even if they say, well, you can pay extra $100 and we can get you in this week. Well, as long as I don't have anything pressing, my demand is relatively elastic and I can wait. A fraction of a consumer budget, essentially that's how much each good represents as a portion of your budget. So the larger it is, the more elastic you are, and the smaller it is, the more inelastic. Let me give you a good example of this. So buying my home, I'm looking at homes in Lubbock. What I find is, because that's going to be such a large percent of my budget, my mortgage payment, I am really price sensitive, right? I don't have an unlimited budget. I really want to get the most I can for the cheapest amount I can. Conversely, when I look around and I want to buy milk, that's a small portion of my budget. Therefore, even if the price goes up by 50% and was $5, because we like milk in our family, it's still a small portion of our budget. Demand's pretty inelastic. The necessity, this is a big one. If the product is a luxury, it's very elastic. That means that you're only going to buy it if it's cheaper, because it's a luxury to you, and this is very important. It's a luxury to you. It doesn't mean it's just a luxury good per se. It's a luxury good to you yourself. The book doesn't do a very good job of clarifying that, so I'm going to clarify it for you. If I'm a billionaire and I want to buy a yacht, that's a luxury good, I'm probably not that price sensitive. I'm a billionaire. That's more of the small fraction of my budget type thing. Whereas if I have my income from South Plains College, I can't buy a yacht, and the price would have to go down a whole lot because I am very price sensitive. If the product is a necessity, so what that means is if you're going to buy it no matter what. A good example of this is recently in Lubbock, LP&L tried to raise their prices, right? Well, they knew they could do that because it was essentially a necessity product, and therefore the elasticity of demand is relatively inelastic. No matter what, they can raise the price. You're still going to use electricity, especially during the summer when they try to do it. I don't know very many people who would say, I can go without air conditioning. It's really hard to do. So therefore the product is a necessity. All right, so here are just a few things, 3 variables in computing the price elasticity of demand itself. We compute percentage change in quantity as well as a percentage change in price, which you've done last chapter. Well, we can actually rearrange those to calculate what would be the percentage change in quantity equals percentage change in price times elasticity of demand. What this is getting at, and I'm not going to actually make you do this in this course. If it was an advanced micro course, we'd actually work backwards. But essentially what you can see is if you know the elasticity of demand, then you can work backwards and find out how much quantity you want to get a certain profit. Essentially, at a certain price, how much are you going to get as far as quantity sold, etc., etc. So you can change all the variables around. Once we know the 3 to begin with, we can actually take one out and leave the other 2 in, and essentially ceteris paribus change one variable and get a different predictor. All you need to know from this slide is that we can use price elasticity to predict changes in quantity. So total revenue. If you're a business major, you need to know this equation. It's fairly simple. Total revenue equals price times quantity. I'll say that one more time. Total revenue equals price times quantity. Go ahead and say that to yourself right now. Total revenue equals price times quantity. If you're an accounting major or you're going to take accounting, you will know this. If you're a business major and you learn nothing else from this course except economics is a study of choices, and businesses maximize profit and consumers maximize utility, and you want to learn one other thing, this is probably it. Total revenue equals price times quantity. The reason why we want to know this is because this gives us one side of the profit equation. The revenue, right? The more revenue we have, the more likely we're going to have more profit. The other side is cost. But right now we're just going to focus on revenue. So essentially, if we're able to add more to our particular revenue stream, you're more price sensitive. The more we sell, the more money we make. In a way. The bad news is we actually have to pay for those, so the cost goes up, right? All right. Let's go on. These are just some tables I'd like you to look at on your own later on. Let's look at the price elasticity of demand. This is a measure of the responsiveness of demand to changes in price of another good equal to the percentage change in the quantity demanded of one good divided by the change in the price of the good Y. Essentially, we're taking two goods. So we might say the percentage change in good X divided by the percentage change in good Y. What we're getting at with this, and I actually will make you calculate the cross price elasticity of demand. I will want you to know that what it's stating essentially is if we lower one good, the price of one good, then will we see a decrease in the change or a decrease in the quantity demanded for another good? I know that was very confusing, so let me try to make it a little bit more simplistic. Let's say you have two substitute goods and they are sold by different businesses. For instance, Pizza Hut and Domino's. If Domino's lowers the price of their pizza by, let's just say, 10%, and Pizza Hut's amount sold decreases by 10%, then we know these are cross-price elastic. Essentially, one percentage change of one good results in a percentage change of another good. Percentage change in price of Domino's results in the percentage change of quantity of Pizza Hut. Those are two substitutive goods. Well, let's look at complementary goods and how they might change, because this will actually come up in your own business. Let's say that Domino's decided to lower the price of pizza by 10%, and the quantity consumed of breadsticks increased by 10% or more. What we would know is that they were cross-price elastic. What this is called is complementary goods. They are goods that complement each other. They go together. So pizza and breadsticks, beer and wings, things like that, right? So when the price of one good goes down, the consumption of the other good goes up. The reason is that you have more money now to buy that other good. Here's a good example of it. This is it's one of my favorite memes. It went out a while back for economics, and it pretty much illustrates the cross-price elasticity of complementary goods better than anything I can tell you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email address is jkemper@southplainscollege.edu. You can always hit me up at Twitter at Mr. Kemper, MrKemper. I've set my Twitter account to private. The only reason why I did that is so I wouldn't have things taken out of context, not from my students, but from other people. But I love it when my students follow me. Don't worry, I won't follow you back. I definitely try to tweet out links and articles and things like that I find appealing. Mostly they're economic things that I tweet out, but they can be other things as well. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, like I said. Thank you, and have a nice day.